First story. I always hated my ungrateful son. Now he told his sister that he is more likable. So I told him he is the unwanted one, and that the only reason he is alive is so his sister wouldn't be alone. Then I grounded him and forced an apology letter from him. Now my son and daughter have betrayed and abandoned me, writing a letter, and I'm regretting my actions. I know this sounds awful, but I need to be honest somewhere. I 39F have 2 kids, a daughter 15 and a son 13. I'm married to their father, and we've been together for nearly 2 decades. From the outside, we look like a normal family, decent home, stable marriage, good kids, but I feel like there is this constant imbalance in our household that nobody but me seems to notice. I'll start by admitting something most parents won't. I do have a favorite child. My daughter. She's easy to love, polite, responsible, warm, and she actually listens. My son, on the other hand, is difficult. He's sarcastic, constantly challenges everything I say, and acts like he's smarter than everyone in the house. People always say mothers shouldn't pick favorites, but when one child constantly argues and disrespects you, and the other brings peace, how are you supposed to feel the same about both? When my husband and I had our first child, I honestly wanted 2 girls. I grew up with a sister, and we were inseparable. I imagined the same for my daughter, someone to share clothes with, giggle late at night, and do makeup together. When I found out my second pregnancy was a boy, I was disappointed. I told myself it didn't matter, but deep down I knew the connection wouldn't come as naturally. And I was right. From the beginning, he was his father's child. Even as a toddler, he'd cry for his dad when I tried to hold him. As he grew, it became more obvious. He'd spend hours playing games or watching sports with his father, while my daughter would sit in the kitchen helping me cook or talk about her day. Our bond came easily. His didn't. I used to tell myself it would change as he grew older, but it only got harder. My son has always been the kind of kid who has to win. Win arguments, win attention, win the last word. He'll twist anything I say into a joke, or worse, a challenge. Like when I tell him to do chores, he'll respond with, "Why doesn't she have to?" Or, "You're only saying that because she's your favorite." He says it like a joke, but I know he means it. A few months ago, there was this incident that still sticks with me. My daughter had helped me prepare dinner while my husband was working late. She set the table, helped me serve, and cleaned up afterwards without me asking. My son came down, saw her helping, and started making comments calling her teacher's pet and Mum's little robot. I told him to knock it off, and he rolled his eyes and said, "Guess I should have been born a girl. Then I'd get away with everything too." I lost my patience that night and told him if he wanted to be treated like an adult, he needed to start acting like one. He stomped off, and we didn't talk the rest of the evening. My husband later told me to pick my battles, but I'm so tired of tiptoeing around him while he disrespects everyone else. The fighting between the kids has also been escalating lately. My daughter tries to avoid him, but he always finds ways to start something, mocking her music, her clothes, and her friends. It's not harmless teasing either. It's mean-spirited. He'll say things like, "You think you're so pretty, but you're just basic," or "You only get praised because you're fake nice." I've punished him before grounding, taking away screens, but it never sticks. Then last week, there was a school event where my daughter won an award for her grades and community work. Everyone praised her teachers, family, even my in-laws. She deserved it. She worked hard. My son barely clapped. On the way home, he made a comment about how girls get awards for smiling and pretending to care. My husband told him to stop being rude, but I was fuming. I told him he was being disrespectful and jealous. He said, "You're only mad because you know I'm right." That was the moment I realized how much I resented his attitude. It's exhausting trying to raise a child who sees kindness as weakness. I honestly believe my daughter's temperament reflects how I raised her: respectful, patient, caring. My son, though, he's like a mirror of my husband's worst habits: stubborn, argumentative, always trying to win. Anyway, fast forward to this week. It started as another normal evening. I'd just come home from work, trying to prepare dinner, while the kids were doing homework at the table. My daughter was talking about her upcoming school trip and how excited she was. My son kept interrupting her, correcting her about little details, saying things like, "You act like this trip is some celebrity event. Nobody cares." I told him to let her speak. He shrugged and said, "You always take her side." It spiraled quickly from there. He started bringing up how I never notice when he does well, how his father always plays games with him, but I barely even talk to him. Then he smirked and said, "At least Dad actually likes me. You only act nice to her because she's your little clone." That one hit a nerve. He said it in such a mocking tone, like he knew exactly how to hurt me. I told him to stop talking that way, but he just leant back and said, "What? It's true." My daughter looked uncomfortable and told him to shut up, saying, "You're just jealous." He laughed and said, "Yeah, sure, jealous of the golden child." Then he said something like, "At least I'm more likable than you." And that's when I snapped. It wasn't a planned thing or a long-held secret spilling out. It was anger, exhaustion, and years of feeling disrespected boiling over. I'd spent the entire day juggling work, chores, and the same repetitive family arguments. And here he was again, smirking, acting like I was the villain for expecting basic respect. I don't even remember walking closer, but my voice came out louder than I meant. I said, "You think you're so likable? You were never even supposed to be here. You ruined what I wanted." The second those words left my mouth, both of them froze. My daughter's face went pale, and my son just stared at me, completely silent. The room went dead quiet. I could hear the TV humming in the background, the clock ticking. But I didn't stop. "You think I don't see how you treat everyone? You were a mistake I couldn't undo. The only reason you're here is because I didn't want your sister to grow up alone. Otherwise, I'd have stopped with one perfect child." His expression didn't even change right away. It was like he didn't understand what I'd said. Then his face just fell. He looked blank, like everything drained out of him. My daughter said, "Mom, stop." But I couldn't. My voice was shaking, and I think I said something like, "You make everything harder. You twist everything into a fight." He asked, "So you didn't want me?" I snapped back, "Don't twist my words. You just don't listen." He stood up, pushed his chair back slowly, and said, "I wish you didn't keep me either." Then he walked upstairs. My daughter was crying, begging me to stop yelling. She ran to her room too. I was standing there, breathing hard, realizing the dinner was still burning on the stove. The house felt completely silent after that. I told myself he needed to hear it. That sometimes kids need harsh truth to realize how lucky they are. He's been acting spoiled and ungrateful for months. Maybe this would make him think twice before speaking to me like that again. Still, that silence hung in the air. I could hear a door close upstairs, and I stood there staring at the half-cooked food. I stood in the kitchen for a few minutes, trying to calm down. But the more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that I'd done what any parent would. He'd been rude, disrespectful, and smug for weeks. I'd warned him to stop, and he didn't. Maybe now he'd finally understand that words have consequences. After about 20 minutes, I went upstairs. My daughter's door was shut, lights off. I could hear faint crying, but I ignored it and walked to my son's room. His light was on. He was sitting on his bed, staring at his desk. I told him we needed to talk. He didn't look at me. I said, "You owe your sister an apology." He didn't respond. I repeated it louder. He said quietly, "Why should I? You already made it clear what I am." I told him he was twisting my words again, that I didn't mean it the way he took it. But that didn't mean he could talk down to his sister. He still didn't look up. I said fine if he didn't want to speak, he could write it down. I brought paper and told him to write an apology note. He hesitated, then took the paper. I stood there while he wrote. It wasn't long, just, "I'm sorry for being rude. I'll be better." I told him to make it sound sincere. He didn't. He folded it once and set it on his nightstand. I took it and told him he'd give it to his sister before bed. He didn't answer. Just kept staring at the same spot on his desk like he wasn't really there. I said, "You don't have to like me, but you will respect me in this house." He still said nothing. When I left his room, I saw my daughter standing in the hallway. Her eyes were red, and she looked terrified of me like she'd seen something she couldn't process. I told her not to cry, that I didn't yell because of her, but because her brother pushed too far. She said quietly, "Mom, he didn't mean it." I told her I didn't either. That sometimes parents say things they don't mean, but it doesn't change what's true that he's been impossible lately, and I'm tired of being treated like a joke. She didn't reply, just went back into her room and locked the door. The house was dead quiet after that. I could hear the fridge humming and the clock ticking, and every sound felt too loud. I cleaned up the kitchen out of habit, but it felt robotic. I kept replaying what had happened in my head, and I couldn't believe how easily he provoked me. People always say teenagers test limits. Fine. But there's a difference between testing and disrespect. He rolls his eyes, mocks me, and makes everything into a competition. Then when I react, everyone acts like I'm the problem. Even my husband has said before that I'm too hard on him, as if expecting basic manners is cruelty now. This isn't the first time I've had to be the bad guy. A few months ago, my husband forgot to discipline him after he skipped a school assignment. I grounded him. My husband thought it was too harsh. But guess who turned in all his work after that? Me. Being strict works. I just don't get thanked for it. I think that's the issue. I'm always the one who enforces rules. So they see me as the villain while he gets to be the fun parent. My son worships him and treats me like I'm the problem. Tonight was just the breaking point. After cleaning, I went to check on both kids one last time. My daughter had left the apology note on her desk. She didn't even open it. My son's light was still on. I opened his door slightly. He was lying in bed, eyes open. I told him to get some sleep. He didn't move. I closed the door. I sat downstairs for a while, trying to figure out how to explain this to my husband. He'd be home soon. I knew he'd ask why the kids were upset. And if he heard what I said, he'd probably make it into a bigger deal than it needs to be. Because here's the thing, I didn't mean it literally. I wasn't saying I wish he wasn't alive. I was saying he was unplanned. Which is true. And I only kept going because he kept provoking me. Parents are human too. And honestly, I do think he needed to hear it. He acts like his life is some big tragedy when he's had everything handed to him. A roof over his head, a father who adores him, all the latest gadgets, a good school, but still he complains that I don't love him enough. Maybe if I stopped walking on eggshells around him, he'd finally stop acting like a victim. It's like he wants me to feel guilty. He does this thing where he goes completely silent after we argue, won't make eye contact, won't eat, and won't talk. My husband calls it shutting down. I call it manipulation. He knows silence makes me uncomfortable, and he uses it to make me feel like I did something wrong. I refuse to play that game. By the time my husband's car pulled into the driveway, I'd already decided how I'd tell it. I'd say the kids argued, things got heated, and I told our son to apologize. I'd leave out the details not because I'm hiding it, but because it'll just cause unnecessary drama. My husband doesn't understand that discipline sometimes means saying things that sting. If you sugarcoat everything, the kid never learns. Before he came inside, I looked at the clock. The house still hadn't made a sound. Both kids are in their rooms. No one came down for dinner. For a second, I wondered if I'd gone too far, not because I regretted it, but because I knew everyone else would think I did. I could already imagine what people would say. You shouldn't say that to a child. But none of them have lived with a kid who disrespects them daily, who laughs in their face, who pits them against their own husband. They don't see the exhaustion that comes with it. They just judge the moment without knowing the years that led to it. When my husband walked in, I just said, "The kids are in their rooms." They were fighting again. I handled it. He looked at me for a second, but didn't press. He knows better than to question me when I'm already tired. I don't know what will happen tomorrow. My daughter will probably still avoid me, and my son will do his silent treatment routine again. But I'm not going to apologize. I said what I said. Maybe it was harsh, but it's the truth. He was never easy, never grateful, and I'm done pretending that I don't see the difference between my two kids. I've spent 13 years trying to connect with someone who pushes me away at every turn. At some point, a mother has to stop begging for respect. So yes, I told my son the only reason I kept him was so his sister wouldn't be lonely. Because honestly, that's how it feels sometimes. If she didn't exist, I don't know what would have kept me from walking away years ago. Now both kids are in their rooms. My daughter won't even look at me, and my son hasn't come out since it happened. My husband will be home in an hour, and I'm not sure if I should tell him the full story or just let it go. Maybe I was too honest. Maybe not. Ada? Comments. Comment 1. I was the kid who got told versions of this. Let me translate what your son heard. You should not exist. Your sister is the real child. You are the placeholder. That's not discipline. That's a psychological grenade. A few things jump out. Golden child versus scapegoat. You openly favor the daughter, one perfect child. You bond with her interests. And you position yourself as the referee against a boy you've already decided is the antagonist. That dynamic guarantees more conflict. He pushes because he knows the deck is stacked. Transference. You admit he's a mirror of his father's worst habits. You don't say it, but you're punishing the father through the son. Every time he smirked, you saw your partner's stubbornness and swung at the kid. Freeze response. The blank stare. The silence that's not manipulation. It's a trauma freeze. He exited the conversation because the person who controls his housing, food, and safety just said he should have been erased. Coerced apology letter. That note is a hostage confession. You didn't repair. You made him perform contrition so you could reassert power. Your daughter refusing it tells you she saw the whole thing for what it was. Please hear this. Teens say vile stuff, sure. But the adult's ceiling sets the kid's floor. You hit him with reproductive regret, one of the few wounds a parent can't walk back with, I didn't mean it. If you won't apologize like you said, then your husband needs to create a safety plan and get that kid someone neutral to talk to. You don't have to like your son, but you do have to stop effing him up. Comment 2. I get the rage that crawls up your spine when a 13-year-old rolls their eyes like you're an idiot. But here's where you went off the rails. You didn't respond to behavior. You attacked identity. That's the line. A few specifics you might not want to hear. When you said, one perfect child, you handed both kids a script. Daughter = pedestal under pressure. Son = permanent villain. Your daughter's terrified look. She just learned love in your house is conditional on gender, temperament, and performance. That's a mind F for her too. Your son's, I wish you didn't keep me either, wasn't a gotcha. That's a kid trying to reclaim dignity after you told him he's a utility item. You think he's manipulating with silence. I think he's trying not to cry in front of the person who just made home unsafe. You call it honesty. It's actually resentment dressed as truth. Real honesty would be, I'm struggling to connect with you. I'm angry and don't know how to stop. What you said was a door slam on his personhood. If you ever decide to fix it, I know you said you won't. Here's the only repair speech that has a shot. I said something cruel. It wasn't true. You are wanted. My job is to protect you. I failed. I'm going to work on my temper and on spending time with you even when I'm annoyed. No, you provoked me. No heat of the moment. You asked Ada. Yeah, YTA. Not because you're the first parent to snap, but because you're defending the snap like it was righteous. You can either be right, or you can be the kind of mother your son can heal around. Pick one. Comment 3. Jesus Christ. OP, get the F out of here. You stood there and told a child he was a mistake, then had the gall to posture like you were doing him a favor. If I were your husband, I'd pack a bag for those kids right now. Get them out of that house and file for emergency custody before you normalize this garbage. You don't get to destroy a kid's sense of safety and then act like you're the reasonable one. I'm tired, and he pushes my buttons are pathetic excuses for telling a 13-year-old he shouldn't exist. Your daughter's terrified, your son's soul is being stomped on, and you're just standing there proud of your moral high ground. Get real. Someone with that level of coldness doesn't deserve to call themselves a parent. Husband, do not let this woman gaslight your children into thinking this is how love looks. Take them away from that toxicity and get them into a home where someone actually values them. Now, update. I didn't tell my husband what really happened that night. When he came home, I said the kids had been arguing again, and that I handled it. He didn't ask questions, just nodded. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning, the house felt like walking through glass. My daughter came down first, hair unbrushed, eyes red. She didn't say good morning. She grabbed a piece of toast and went straight back to her room. My son didn't come down at all. I figured he was sulking and left him alone. By afternoon, I realized he hadn't eaten anything. His door was locked. I knocked and said lunch was ready. No response. I told him I wasn't playing games and he needed to come out. Still nothing. I tried the handle, locked. When my husband got home that evening, I said our son was in one of his moods. He went up, knocked once, and the kid opened the door. My husband stayed in there for maybe 15 minutes. When he came down, he looked at me differently, not angry, but quiet. He asked, "What exactly did you say to him?" I said, "Nothing you wouldn't have." He didn't believe me. That night my daughter cried again. She thought I couldn't hear, but her room is next to mine. I almost went in, but then I thought about how she looked at me earlier like I was something she had to protect herself from, and I stayed where I was. By the third day, things hadn't improved. My husband kept watching me, like he was waiting for me to confess something. My son barely spoke. He'd go to school, come home, and disappear into his room. No sarcasm, no jokes, just silence. It should have been peaceful, but somehow it felt worse. Then the email came from the school counselor. She said my son had been withdrawn, distracted, and unusually quiet, and she wanted to schedule a meeting to discuss if something was happening at home. My husband read it before I did. He confronted me again. said the counselor had called because our son told her there'd been a big fight. I said all families fight. He asked if I said something cruel. I told him to stop believing kids' versions of things. He didn't yell, but his voice changed low, flat. He said, "You're hiding something." I didn't respond. That night, he slept on the couch. My daughter has stopped trying to talk to either of us. She eats in her room now. When I knock, she says she's fine. When I tried to make her watch TV with me, she said she had homework. I asked if she was mad at me. She said, "I don't know." That stung more than if she'd said yes. Then there was the note. It was about a week after the argument. I was making coffee before work and found a folded paper under my mug. Same handwriting as the apology letter I made him write. It said, "You didn't have to keep me." I tore it up and threw it away before my husband saw it. I told myself it was teenage dramatics guilt tripping me because he didn't like being called out. I tried to tell myself it was manipulation, but it didn't feel like it. It felt like resignation. My husband found out about the note anyway. I forgot the smallest piece on the counter when I tore it up. He saw part of the sentence. He didn't even ask. He just looked at me and said, "You told him something you can't undo, didn't you?" He went upstairs that night and stayed in the guest room. The next morning, he packed a small bag and said he was taking both kids to his sister's for the weekend. I didn't stop him. I wanted to, but I didn't know what to say that wouldn't make it worse. The house has been quiet since. It's not the kind of silence you enjoy. It's heavy. I keep hearing phantom noises, a door creak, footsteps that aren't there. I tried to put on music while cleaning, but it just made the emptiness louder. I told myself they'll be back Sunday. They weren't. Monday morning, he texted, saying he'd extended the stay for a few days. No explanation. I asked if the kids were okay. He said, "They're fine." Later that day, my sister showed up. Apparently my husband had told her what happened, or at least his version. She said she just wanted to check on me, but I could tell it was more than that. She asked point blank if I'd really told my son I didn't want him. I said I told him he wasn't planned, which is true. She said, "That's not the same thing, and you know it." I told her to leave. Yesterday, my husband came back alone. The kids stayed at his sister's. He said he wanted to talk. He didn't sit down. He just stood in the doorway with his hands in his pockets. He said, "He told me exactly what you said." I told him teenagers exaggerate. He said, "He quoted you word for word." He said, "You've been trying to justify this for over a week. Do you even understand what you did?" I told him yes, I lost my temper. Parents do that. He said this wasn't temper. It was cruelty. He asked if I'd ever considered how my words would sit in his head for the rest of his life. I didn't answer. He said, "You shouldn't be around them right now." That one hit differently. So now I'm here, alone in the house. The kids haven't texted. My husband sends short updates. They're okay. They're at school. They're with their aunt. Nothing more. I haven't told anyone else. The neighbors asked why the kids haven't been around. I said they're visiting family. The truth is harder to say out loud now, not because I think I'm wrong, but because I can feel how everyone else would look at me if they knew. It's strange, when I first wrote here, I was sure I'd done the right thing. I thought if I stood firm, eventually everyone would realize I wasn't the monster, just the only one willing to say what others wouldn't. Now I'm not so sure. I still think my son pushes limits. I still think he needed to be humbled. But lately I've started wondering if maybe I've been fighting a battle no one else is even part of. My husband came by tonight to pick up more clothes. He didn't stay long. Before he left, he said, "If you can't acknowledge what happened, I'm going to file." I didn't ask what he meant. I knew. He took the wedding photo off the mantle before he left. I watched him do it, but didn't say anything. The house is silent again. And for the first time, I'm not sure if that's peace or punishment. That's where things stand. Everyone's gone. And I'm here convincing myself I didn't ruin everything. I just told the truth no one wanted to hear. Still, it's getting harder to believe it. Comments. Comment 1. I'm a mom who has yelled, slammed a few doors, and eaten my share of crow, and even I'm floored by the stubbornness here. Your husband isn't soft. He's the only adult in the house who recognized a 5-alarm fire. He did what parents do when one parent detonates. He created space so the kids could breathe. Good. Keep them there until there's a real plan. And yes, I said plan, not a half-arsed. We were all heated. Your favorite child thing isn't subtle. It bleeds through every line you write. The pedestal you put your daughter on is shaky as hell, She's terrified because she just learned love can collapse with one wrong sentence. That, I don't know when you asked if she's mad. That's the sound of a kid going gray to stay safe. Meanwhile, your son's attitude reads exactly like a kid who gave up trying to win you over and settled for being right. You claim you want respect. Respect isn't going to materialize from a child you told shouldn't exist. It comes from repair, consistency, and shutting the F up before you say the irreversible thing. If you won't apologize, and you've made that crystal clear, then step back. No discipline from you, no teachable moments, no forced letters. Let dad handle the day-to-day, get the boy a therapist, and you do your work with a professional who will look you in the eye and say, "You are hurting your kids. You can keep defending yourself, or you can keep your family. Right now, you're choosing the defense." Comment 2. Wow, OP, reading your update felt like watching someone drown, and then complain the water's being rude. You are so far up your own self-righteous arse, you could host a yoga class in there. Every line of yours drips with the same smug martyr complex you accused your son of having. You turned "a teenager was rude" into "guess I'll emotionally eviscerate a child." You're not a mother, you're a tyrant with a laundry schedule. You talk about respect like it's some divine prize, but you haven't shown a drop of it to anyone. You wanted a daughter-shaped mirror and a son who worships you. Instead, you got 2 human beings and decided that was an inconvenience. You even frame your husband protecting the kids as some kind of betrayal. No, sweetheart, that's called parenting. He's the only one in that house doing it. You think silence is peace because it means nobody's talking back. No, it's the sound of 2 kids learning how to tiptoe around a ticking bomb. You didn't lose your temper. You weaponized your kid's existence because you couldn't handle being challenged. And now you're alone, convincing yourself it's clarity. It's not. It's a consequence. Here's the ugly truth you keep ducking. You're not strong. You're not honest. You're just mean. Mean and cowardly. You burned your family down to feed your ego, and then stood in the ashes saying, "At least I stood my ground." Congrats, there's nothing left standing with you. Second story. My thieving friend stole my boyfriend's camera and lost it. So I covered for her and asked her to replace it. She refused. So I asked her to meet me halfway to buy a new one. She refused again. Am I wrong for involving the police? More context. We were out to dinner one night at an expensive hotel. My boyfriend let me borrow his Canon G7X 18 camera to bring to take pictures with my friends. At the conclusion of the dinner, I went up to the room and realized the camera was gone. I went back right down to the table, and no one had seen it. I immediately got with hotel security, and she is on video, clear as day, swiping the camera when my back was turned and shoving it in her purse. I covered for her initially with my friend and contacted her to find a resolution. She had taken the camera with her and my other friends to a club after dinner, which I did not attend, and lost it there. For background, this is my good college friend who I know well, the camera thief. She has been taken on free trips to Coachella and sent baths on my dime, not kidding, as well as many other things. We have done a lot together and are good friends, so I expected her to feel sorry. Initially she lied, saying she did not have it. When I told her we had video, she confessed, and then said yes, she took it, but lost it at the next bar she went to with my other friends. It is now gone. I asked her to help me replace it by going in on me with the cost. She has refused all measures or resolutions, and now I feel I have nothing left to do but file a police report and let them handle it. It is impacting my relationship, and I am furious my friend is not helping at all. Why should I be on the hook for something she stole? I have given her 3 weeks to help me resolve this, but she insists she is going to do nothing. I am being pressed by my boyfriend to either replace the camera or help him file a report with her info and the footage. I even asked her to just throw in half or less than half the cost to help, but she still refuses. I do not want her to get in trouble, but I am at the point where I feel she really does not care. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. YTA, is there a reason you are choosing your thieving friend over your boyfriend? She's made it clear she's not your friend, and that she's not going to make this right. The police report should have been filed the moment she said she wasn't going to pay for it. If I were your boyfriend, I would be reconsidering the relationship with you over this. You're really dragging your feet to make this right. Get the report made and replace his camera. OP. This is how I am starting to feel. You are right. And thank you for the honest words. I just hate to get anyone in trouble. I think I may be the arsey hole because if I wanted to, I could have paid out of pocket and resolved it for everyone. Commenter 2. YTA. I'm not even sure why you are asking. I have rarely seen a post with more arseholish behavior on here. You are an arsehole to your BF. The kind guy trusted you with something valuable. And you are not even giving him all the information you have after it got swiped. You brought your arsehole friend to this dinner. You are an arsehole for not filing a report. You are an arsehole to yourself for not holding this effing friend accountable. What the hell do you mean by throwing in half? Get your head out of your arse and go file a report. Make sure your BF is made whole. Be utterly embarrassed with your own behavior here. And do better next time. OP, I know. I just didn't want to get her in trouble. I feel I could have paid for it myself and resolved it for everyone. She is also in our friend group we have had forever, and it will cause ripples. Commenter 3. I'd break up with you for this TBH. Not wanting to cause ripples. You're causing them in your relationship. Hopefully he leaves you after you keep showing you aren't on his side. OP, I am a good boyfriend to him. We love each other. It is just a weakness in my character that I give people the benefit of the doubt. Clearly something I need to work on. I just really try to give people the benefit of the doubt, especially those I am close with. OP clarifies on the location of the security cameras after realizing his BF's camera was missing once OP went up to his room. OP wrong. I went up to my room where my BF was. He asked where his camera was. I went right down to the salon where we were eating, and it was gone, and no staff had seen it after clearing our table. This is what prompted me to have security check the cameras, which they had in the dining room. Commenter 4. Genuine question. Are you a particularly insecure person? Don't mean that as an insult. Asking because that's the only way I could see someone trying to make amends with this friend. She's not your friend. She's using and taking advantage of you. And it sounds like she's been doing so for a long time. There are better people out there. You need to start respecting and treating yourself better. Otherwise, your willingness to go out on a limb for the wrong people will jeopardize your relationships with the right people. I'm sure you can see how this can quickly turn into a self-destructive cycle. Report her to the police and cut her out of your life. And if you aren't already, I'd talk to a therapist to better understand why you feel so compelled to protect this relationship. Soft YTI to yourself and your boyfriend. OP, I agree with you. And this is an issue I do have. You are right here. I am a people pleaser at my own expense. Additional information from OP after reading comments. OP, I feel guilty because I gave her time to fix it, and she made me look like an idiot. I also feel guilty because I know if I could swing it right now, I would have replaced it myself. I just cannot at this moment buy a 2K camera. Editor's note. All of the updates were made in comments, but also edited into the original post. Update. I sent her a text this I'm telling her if I do not receive the full cost of the camera or shipping confirmation of a new camera from an approved vendor to a provided address by the end of day Friday, we will be filing a report with the police Saturday AM. I felt like an arsehole typing this out to her, but I have to do it. Comments. Commenter 1. Why would you even borrow this camera to begin with? A G7X is a glorified point-and-shoot camera. At the cost of $1,800. Why wouldn't you just use your cell phone? I know this isn't the point, but you borrowed something expensive, and then lost it around people you can't trust. And it wasn't something you even needed to use. OP, yes, you are right. In my defense, I borrowed it from the hotel room. We were in to meet them at the hotel restaurant. I never intended to leave property with it. Boyfriend stayed in the room upstairs when I went to meet friends, thinking of taking a few pics on it and bringing it back upstairs when done. Commenter 2. Wow, your update makes you even more of an ah. Just go to the police station and file a report. You are going to keep giving her a line to hang you with. Don't be surprised when your BF dumps you after he is made whole for the cost of the camera. OP. I did that because I had a feeling it would be resolved if I made it clear action would be taken. One way or the other. Commenter 3. My take is that the friend stole the camera because she wanted it. Not just to take a few extra pics after OP went home, as she claimed. She didn't lose it, as she first claimed. IMO, she still has it, even after all the drama that's already happened. Police is what that girl deserves and needs. OP. This is starting to feel like what it is. I do not know if you are familiar, but this camera, even at full price, is out of stock. Girls covet it because it is known as the best Instagram camera. I think she took it and hoped I would replace it. OP should be making this up to his boyfriend. OP. I bought him some golden goose shoes, dinner, and some clothes. I feel awful. I am glad this happened. I am done being used by my friends. Update. She told me she is sick of me, and that I will be receiving a tracking number by 12 Eastern on Friday, and not to blame her if the package is never received. I told her if she was my real friend, she would be sorry, and in no way will I allow this to be flipped on me. Should I ask if the camera is new or the one that disappeared? Update. She sent me a tracking number via FedEx. It says it is awaiting package. I have asked her repeatedly if she is sending me the original camera, assuming it magically turned up, or a new one. She refuses to answer and only tells me to stop bothering her. Update. I am more and more convinced my friend camera thief took the camera hoping that I would just replace it for my boyfriend, gifting her a free camera. For background, this friend is heavily involved on Instagram and loves taking pictures. The Canon G7 is coveted by women because it is known as the Instagram camera. Even if you wanted to buy one at full price, they are out of stock everywhere. Let's hope it gets returned with this tracking. FedEx still says awaiting package, even though shipping info was sent to them at 7 p.m. yesterday. Update. The original camera was returned via FedEx the other day. Has been given back to the boyfriend. However, the camera thief blocked me on all socials after this. It appeared she was trying to keep the camera for herself and expected me to just buy a new one for the BF. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.